You're standing in line. Cart full. Heart slightly elevated. It's not a big purchase. Just a few things. A jacket you didn't plan on. Some upgraded groceries. Maybe a limited-time bundle that felt responsible in the moment. Your thumb hovers over the checkout button. And suddenly it feels urgent. Not exciting. Not indulgent. Urgent. Like something bad will happen if you don't complete it. So you do. And 10 minutes later, the urgency is gone. The relief is real. The regret comes later. Here's the uncomfortable part. Your brain just treated that checkout button like survival. Not shopping. Survival. My name is Daniel Gray. I spend way too much time thinking about the psychology of money. If you're someone who keeps wondering why small purchases feel weirdly intense in the moment, and strangely hollow afterward, subscribe and give this a thumbs up if it changes how you think. Because what's happening at checkout is not about math. It's about wiring. And your wiring doesn't care about your budget. Here's the thing. When you approach checkout, whether online or in a store, your brain isn't processing exchange of currency for goods. It's processing threat and relief. A 2012 study by researchers at Stanford University found that anticipated purchases activate the brain's reward circuitry, specifically dopamine pathways associated with survival behaviors like eating. The same circuitry. Your brain doesn't distinguish very well between "I found food" and "I found a deal." Both register as resource acquisition. And resource acquisition, historically, meant survival. Now layer this with a 2018 study from MIT showing that the act of clicking buy produces a measurable spike in dopamine, not when the product arrives, but at the moment of commitment. That spike is relief. Relief that you secured the resource. Right? Your nervous system just checked a box, safe. This is where it gets really interesting. A 2021 paper published by researchers at University of Cambridge found that financial decision-making under mild stress shifts people into what they called short-term resource consolidation mode. Translation. When you're stressed, your brain prioritizes acquiring things now over preserving resources long-term. Sound familiar? You had a bad day. You scroll. You buy. Not because you're irresponsible. Because you're wired. Now let's talk numbers. Because this is where the illusion collapses. Imagine you spend $42 on small, impulse purchases twice a week. Nothing dramatic. Just minor emotional friction. $42 times 2 equals $84 per week. $84 times 52 weeks equals $4,368 per year. Over 10 years. $43,680. That's not catastrophic wealth destruction. But it's not nothing. And here's the more disturbing layer. If that $4,368 per year were invested at a conservative 7% annual return, over 10 years it becomes roughly $60,000. You didn't treat yourself. You treated a stress response. And your brain thanked you for surviving something that wasn't actually threatening. Look, I'm not moralizing this. I'm not saying, stop spending. I'm observing a mechanism. Your brain experiences uncertainty as danger. And checkout feels like control. A 2013 study by researchers at Carnegie Mellon University found that people who experienced social rejection showed significantly increased desire for material goods immediately afterward. Not because they needed the items. Because acquisition restored a sense of stability. Here's what most people don't realize. The shopping isn't about the object. It's about reasserting control. When life feels chaotic, buying something feels decisive. Decisiveness feels powerful. Power feels safe. Safety feels like survival. And survival is the deepest instinct you have. Now, you might be thinking. Okay, but I just like nice things. Sure. So does everyone. But here's the objection I always hear. It's only $20. It's not a survival response. It's just convenience. Right. Then why does it feel tense? Why does the cart feel heavy before checkout, and lighter after? Why does closing the tab without buying feel slightly uncomfortable? If it were neutral, you'd feel neutral. But you don't. Because your brain interprets unresolved desire as an open loop. And open loops create cognitive tension. A 2019 behavioral economics study from University of Chicago found that incomplete purchasing decisions increase cortisol, the stress hormone, compared to completed transactions. Completion reduces stress. So checkout becomes closure. Closure becomes relief. Relief becomes reinforcement. You are literally training yourself to associate spending with emotional safety. Let me tell you about Maya. Composite character. But very real pattern. Maya works in marketing. Makes $95,000 a year. Not struggling. But every Sunday night, she orders something online. Clothes. Gadgets. Random upgrades. She tells herself it's productivity optimization. Here's what's actually happening. Sunday night is anticipatory anxiety. Monday is uncertainty. Uncertainty triggers mild survival alert. So she buys. Package arrives Wednesday. Dopamine again. But here's the thing. By Friday, baseline anxiety is back. So the cycle repeats. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Maya isn't addicted to products. She's addicted to the physiological drop in tension that checkout provides. And the system is perfectly designed to exploit that wiring. Countdown timers. Low stock warnings. One-click purchasing. They compress the time between stress and relief. And when you compress that time, behavior becomes automatic. Now here's another objection. But if it was survival wiring, wouldn't we all overspend constantly? Not exactly. Because the instinct activates under specific conditions. Stress. Social comparison. Uncertainty. Loneliness. Remove those, spending becomes more rational. But modern life amplifies all four. Social media intensifies comparison. News cycles amplify uncertainty. Work environments amplify stress. Digital life increases loneliness. So your survival circuitry is constantly nudged. And the checkout button becomes the fastest relief valve available. Let's run one more uncomfortable piece of math. Say your emotional spending isn't $42 twice a week. Let's say it's smaller. $18, 3 times a week. That's $54 per week. $2,808 per year. Over 20 years at 7% annual growth. Roughly $120,000. Not because you were reckless. Because your nervous system was doing exactly what it evolved to do. Secure resources when uncertain. The problem is, in 2026, uncertainty is constant, and resources are infinite. Your brain evolved for scarcity. You live in abundance. That mismatch is expensive. Here's what most people don't realize. The intensity you feel at checkout isn't about the money leaving. It's about the threat of not securing something. When you abandon cart, your brain interprets it, subtly, as loss. Loss aversion is powerful. Research originally pioneered by Daniel Kahneman demonstrated that losses feel psychologically about twice as powerful as gains. So not buying feels like losing the deal. Losing feels dangerous. Danger triggers urgency. Urgency triggers purchase. And the cycle feels rational in the moment. Because survival wiring always feels rational. Look, I'm not here to tell you to stop buying things. I'm observing something darker. The modern marketplace doesn't just sell products. It sells relief. And relief is biologically persuasive. Your brain is wired to prioritize immediate safety over abstract future security. Future security is a spreadsheet. Immediate safety is a feeling. And instinct always wins against abstraction. Money is psychology. Everything else is detail. If this changed how you think about spending, subscribe. This is what we do here. We look at the psychology everyone else ignores. Because the moment you realize checkout feels like survival, you start seeing every "buy now" button differently. And once you see the wiring, you can't unsee it.